Ooh, hey everybody, welcome to another corner conversation on Second Peter. Turning to chapter 2 this week, and we have the distinguished, the renowned, the famous,
the important
Jenny. She's in the room, even though she's in the weeds.
Yes, we were trying. She's an aunt this morning, she said.
Yes.
And so then she confused Scott, who's trying to figure out if she was an aunt, aunt, or an aunt.
Is this our banter?
Aunt.
Is this the
Yeah,
banter
this
we're
is
doing
good
today?
answer. We've been up for a while. This is all I got. So.
Yep. Jenny, are you an early riser?
I usually, I get up at the same time every day, 6 a.m. No matter what. My lights turn on. I have an automation.
Oh,
yeah.
And it's quite nice. I like it actually.
Nice. I like that.
We have-
My husband is like, he does not eat, like I always wake up not an hour, well, sometimes an hour before him, and I wouldn't mind turning on the lights, but he leaves lights off for as long as possible. And I'm like, it is morning, it is bright, let's turn the lights on, let's wake up. And like he goes to work in his office and the lights off, and I'm like, why don't you turn this light on? Like, turn it on, and he's like, okay, sorry.
Oh no, I need the
You're
light.
not that way?
It helps with the waking.
Yeah, I need the light too.
We're in the season, it's already, well, and it'll get worse in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
No, it's later than that, end of October, beginning of November,
Yeah.
the time change, but
Oh.
where you get up
It's 4
and
o'clock and
I bike to wherever I'm going in the dark, and then I bike home in the dark. It's always dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's, what is the Swedish word for cozy, enjoy winter?
Oh,
Ready, Rich?
Huga.
What is it?
Huga.
Huga.
I don't think it's Huga.
It's HYG.
It's pronounced, it has a U sound in it, but it's
Yes.
HYGGE.
Yeah.
Huga. How did you?
Something
Huga.
like that.
That's good.
Shall we
What's that?
ask?
I was just like,
Yes.
can I go to Google and they tell me?
Go into the phone.
So do you ascribe to winter cozies? Is that your thing?
I want to be cozy all the time.
I like being cozy in the winter. I just got a sleeping bag for my cat
Yugi.
Huga.
for cozy, winter cozy.
Okay,
You-
you just said some words that I need to ask one more time. So
Sorry, we were talking
I
about.
feel like you
things.
said I got my cat a sleeping bag.
Yes.
What did you do?
Okay.
I was trying to figure
Okay,
out.
okay.
Okay, let's
We
hear it.
gotta hear this story.
Pronounce in English or American this word spelled HYGGE. How do you go about pronouncing it? Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
What was it, Rich?
Huga.
Yuga.
Yuga. So this is the intentionality of cozy, comfy, embrace the dark and embrace the cold.
Candles,
Did
Yeah.
your cat?
comfiness.
Sleeping bags.
Sleeping bags,
Cat
the
sleeping
pajamas
bag.
that are like super
Yeah.
fuzzy.
I just
like,
want
For your
like
cat?
cabin
No, for me.
feel.
Okay.
Like I want a cabin feel somewhere, and that is like cozy to me. The right cozy, I guess. I want to feel like I'm in a cabin.
Okay, so back to this
Oh,
sleeping
okay.
bag.
Cat sleeping bag. How does the cat get in the sleep? Do you
Well,
put the cat in the sleeping bag?
So
Like,
I
how
haven't.
does
It
this
just
work?
arrived yesterday, and he was grumpy,
okay.
so we haven't tried it out yet. But it's for his.
Does your
I
cat
know-
have bad days?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, he was just weird and like shaking and mad, and so then I just thought he's getting old. He's 14, so yeah, I don't know.
He's moody, like,
but no, he's moody.
Hey,
But yes, it's a
hey,
Scott.
listen.
But yes, it's a sleeping bag, and it's like fuzzy on all the sides, so he could lay on it like a little blanket, or he could
crawl
tuck in and crawl inside. And so I have it for his stroller, which is my other, So I thought as it gets colder, I can have the sleeping bag in there, and then he could go and like cuddle in if it gets cold, and we could still go for walks.
Okay, so you take the cat for walks, not on a leash, but in a stroller with his cat sleeping bag. I like this.
Yes.
This is what happens when you don't have kids.
No, I like it. I don't like cats actually, but I like this for you.
You could do this for dogs too.
Yeah,
Or,
I could
you know,
do
You just
that.
haven't met the right cat.
You're not wrong, but all the cats I've met are cats I don't like. So
That's fine.
they scratch you. They're just
Nope.
okay.
You have not met the right cat.
All right. There's not many right cats. I
You
guess.
can remove the claws.
I know, but
Yeah.
that's not nice. You can't do that.
Remove the
anymore.
knuckles.
Yeah. Oh, it's so mean.
You can't do it.
Can't do
And
it.
if
Can't
I'm
do
gonna
it.
have a cat, that's the only way I'd want to have a cat is without claws, but you can't do it, so I can't have a cat.
Right.
So there you go.
So,
So Second Peter.
Second Peter.
Oh no, you should
This is
show
like-
this
Yeah.
to the people so they
No,
can see.
No, this
Oh,
one's just for Jenny.
It's rich here.
It's
Get
it's one of
dog
those,
in a
it's
backpack.
one of those.
Like a baby
That's what you do when you don't have kids things. Yeah.
But the world needs to know.
Was it a cat backpack?
Oh.
No, it's not.
Backpack.
Just putting a cat in a backpack.
You ever seen a corgi in a backpack?
They fly you to-
well, they have the
Oh.
ones with the bubbles. Have you seen them? And it's like it's a
You can
backpack.
bike-
where
you
they're
can
totally
bike with a
closed,
corgi
and
in the
there's a
backpack.
little, like plastic bubble
Yeah,
that they can look out and see the world as they're in the backpack.
Yeah.
As they're in the backpack.
this is for a cat or a
Yeah,
dog?
yeah,
Oh
for
my
cats.
goodness.
Dogs will stay in a backpack, cats will.
Yeah, well, it's, yeah, that was hard for me.
You gotta zip them all the
Hard for
way.
me to
for
imagine
cats. Yeah.
both ways.
So they're like this.
The bubble.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
We were
so if
talking
you
about
ever see Jenny walking around with a zipped backpack on her back.
the cat, just like,
Just a paw.
like just one little bubble, like is the whole backpack
The back is
clear?
plexi.
No, it's like one bubble.
Just
like
one little, okay.
Imagine a rocket with a wind.
Yeah, okay, that's what cause it would be really funny if it was like a clear bubble and there was just a cat like in there.
There
just-
is.
I know, but like, I mean.
You
the
can
whole
fully see it.
thing.
Yeah, you can fully see.
Oh, okay, yeah, I don't know what to do about that.
So you can Google it.
I will, this is more than I can handle, but I will Google it.
So I would say,
I don't
I would say maybe, Rachel, this is why you don't like cats. Ready, I'm gonna make the stretch leap.
Okay, here we go.
You're going for it.
Do you not like cats because they have no grace?
They have no grace
Oh, they don't have grace.
and they're destructive and they lead to destruction.
Haven't met the right cat.
There's a
Destructive.
list, there's a
Cats
list of things that some of the people were talking about not following in Second Peter. They're destructive and they cause destruction and cats may cause some destruction.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, so First and Second Peter, the disciple, the apostle Peter is writing to a group of people that are in modern day Turkey that are facing incredible Roman oppression, living in exile, hanging on by a thread. The first letter, traveling letter, going from church to church is very inclusive in language, meaning that it's, you know, using Old Testament covenant language. You are God's people. You're not forgotten. You are to be a blessing. All these, and so they wouldn't have necessarily thought of themselves as being like insiders, but that's beautiful about Peter's writing. Second Peter, he writes them with an incredible surprise, and the surprise is that you've been listening to advice and it's been bad.
It's been
And-
really bad.
And so 15 times he alludes to knowledge and repeatedly pointing to the reality that listen to Jesus, have a relationship with him, listen to the word of God. And by the way, the dum-dums you're listening to. And so First Peter chapter 1, the second half is basically there's this, it ends with, and it wasn't entirely our focus of last week, but it ends with this, you know, pretty glowing review of himself.
Yeah,
You should listen to me,
yeah.
which is
I mean, and it's reasonable because
Yeah.
he's trying to teach the truth and he's
Yeah.
trying to follow after Jesus. It's
Yeah.
not like he's amazing, but he is definitely trying to.
yeah, he's in
He's
fact,
trying to
it's-
teach them well.
yeah, it's part of the whole thing is Peter was gung ho in his successes, but also his failures, and there's
Yeah.
grace was a big part of his relationship with Jesus. And then the first words of Second Peter is, you know, hey, apostle here, spent
Yeah.
time with Jesus here, listen to me.
It's like when you're a speaker, like they tell you to create, you know, like who are you? You need the people need
Yeah.
to trust you, and so you got to tell them a little bit about who you are. And I feel like Peter's trying
That's when every speaker puts up a
a picture of
corny
his
picture of
family.
their family.
Yeah.
And like, here's my cat.
How much do
you?
there's like that in the backpack or the stroller
Yep.
in the sleeping bag, you know.
Yep. And
That's
so,
what you should do on Sunday. Just
Yes.
at the beginning. Yes.
Yeah.
Like you should listen to me. Look at this cat.
name?
Anya.
Like hello?
Yeah.
Arrested Development?
Yes.
I love that.
wow, if I have.
I'm so
I didn't even-
happy.
I didn't even
You're
know
like
it was
the
a
first
re-
person who got the reference without me having to explain it. Yeah.
Well, it would be rich.
Mhm.
So
It would be.
Peter, end of chapter 1 is calling them to remember that Jesus is the Messiah. The word of God is not from humanity, but from God.
Mhm.
And in the midst of that, he's going, there are good messengers, good messengers. I am one. Listen, listen. And then you turn to chapter 2 and he just rips
He
into
lets,
the,
yeah, who you should listen to and why and all these,
Yeah.
you know,
like in the
destructive
end, they'll
things.
burn. Their feet will, they're put to the fire, like all these love language things.
Yeah.
It's very
a little
touching.
cozy.
But
Yeah, cozy.
No.
I think something that I think a lot, I say pretty often, is that in order to truly understand grace, you have to understand wrath or judgment. In order to understand being forgiven, you have to also understand failure and struggle and even the complexities of it. And so right in the middle of this harsh declaration of all the things that are coming for the bad messengers, bad advice givers, false prophets, whatever you want to call them. He says, oh yeah, by the way, I will rescue those that are godly.
Yeah.
And maybe we obviously can't cover everything that's in this letter, and there's a lot to be covered and that we're not even bringing to the surface at all. But what a great thing in the midst of all these declarations of judgment that don't worry, I'm not addressing everybody in the room, and I can assume. I think I have a good idea what each of you would experience. What is your experience when you're in the room when somebody else is being chewed out?
I don't wanna be there.
Like
I
intensely.
may be equally,
Like,
that
get
may
me out
make
of
me
here.
angry, like. There is a part of me that wants to defend if someone's chewing
Mm.
someone else out
Yep.
and I'm not scared. Like it would probably depend on how scared of the person that was chewing the person out I was, but there is a part of me that would let them have it.
That's
Like,
interesting. So
who do you think you
Rich
are?
would be the
See,
one that
me
I've,
too,
it's
for
more of a
sure.
wild card in my
Mhm.
brain. I don't like, I think you just simply just don't want to be there.
It depends on who it is.
Who's doing the chewing or being chewed?
Do I have connection to them at all?
Mhm.
Is it something that I am a part of?
Mm.
Is it just I'm in a room with it?
Mhm.
Because if I'm in a room with it, like if we're just sitting in there and someone else walks in and they start ripping on someone that I have no connection to, it's that full body butt clench moment. I don't want to be there. I'm just
But if it turns a certain way, there's
Make sure you get the
usually
video
that's
so you can
like-
see what Rich just did.
But that's the thing is if it's because that's a bad example too because this is a coffee shop that I'm connected to. So if it got to a certain point, I would
Yeah,
still
for
sit there.
sure.
If I was in like 5 watt or something and that was happening, I would just be like this the whole time.
I know,
I don't want
I think
this.
it just depends on the level, like there is like. Sometimes, like there's always a person, yeah, that's uncomfortable. There's
Yeah.
just so many ambiguity.
Some
Okay, so
people
what would
deserve
you
to be
do?
chewed out.
Well, I think I feel all of the things. I don't want to be there. I feel a degree of embarrassment for people.
Yeah.
I do feel defending. Sometimes I just go, this is maybe a response that none of you really said is like, this is so stupid.
Yeah.
But
It impacts my I like for the rules or the etiquette that is there to be followed.
Yeah.
And chewing someone out in public is bad manners. It's bad etiquette.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't do that because
Yeah.
it's bad form.
Yeah, there's a part of me that would go to the person that was chewed out afterwards and be like, listen, that was way more embarrassing.
Oh
than
wait,
the other
dumb.
person."
Next door. Yeah, it's just
so you would be more apt to talk to the person being chewed out than the person who did the chewing?
Well, in the moment, if they're being aggressive, there's a part of me that would let them, I would step in there. Like I've done that before, maybe not
Yes,
smartly.
on the bus.
On a bus. Two old guys are yelling and pushing each other. I would, but like if I felt afterwards, like if it ended and the person that was being chewed out was still there, I would definitely be like, listen, that was way more embarrassing for the person that was doing that to you than it is for you. Because
What
I would
changes
feel
when
compassion.
it's deserved?
when is it
Yeah.
deserved?
A public.
there can be a gracious chewing out. You know, in your
Is
anger.
Peter
you might-
pretty? I don't think Peter's very good at a gracious chewing.
No, he's not.
I guess that's like the people, I don't know. Yeah. if it's deserved, yeah.
It still shouldn't be in public.
Yeah,
No, yeah,
And I think this is, I mean, this is not really a faith statement. I think this is good theology, is that we're not called to emulate Peter.
no.
Mm.
mm-mm.
And so the word of God is without fault.
I think Peter at
And
this moment,
Peter's personality has its issues.
Yeah. I
He
think
still is
Peter's,
Peter.
he's trying to protect them. I think that's why he
Yeah.
writes so aggressively, is like, listen, like, cause the list of like, whatever the people that are the false teachers are doing, like the path is like, Peter's like, this leads to destruction. They're arrogant. They're doing these things to
They're
try to
hurting you.
deceive you.
Uh-huh.
They're trying to like, so it's like, I think even though Peter is aggressive, he's writing to people that he's trying to protect.
Yeah.
And
And it is uncomfortable.
it is,
You
it
were
is,
gonna say something,
it's
and I'm sorry.
unclear. I haven't seen anybody writing that the people being scolded were or weren't necessarily in the room.
Yeah,
And so, so we can like maybe set that aside, and again, that's for me, and that's where I just go when Peter, in the midst of this, like elevated,
mhm,
breaking pencils as he's writing to him going, and God is a rescuer. God is a rescuer. And again, part of why that I feel like I get fixated on that is because he shares two Old Testament narrative stories that are about incredible wrath, judgment,
Yeah.
heavy stuff. But they're also stories of rescue. That's that's why we really love these stories, is because they're about rescue. And so when you tell the story of Noah, you know, it's Noah and the ark is not painted on toddlers' bedroom walls because of the the
Human
genocide of
impact.
humanity.
yeah.
I always think like it is kind of humorous to me, but like I would love to just like paint this and then there you see
With all the people
That's like
drowning.
all the
the
people.
fingernail scratches on the
Rec
side
in
of the ark.
Government's building in the Parks and Rec, there's all these terrible moments.
Yeah. And so, but the thing that there's the animals, they're cute, whatever, they're bringing the giraffes and the backpacks into the ark. It's very nice. But the thing that is like has the true staying power, the power of the story, it is a story of God's rescue.
Yeah.
And his recreation. And yes, again, it goes back to that we have to understand God's intensity and his perfection, but also it isn't destruction over. Everything's done. And then he shares the story of Lot and Sodom and Gomorrah, and it's worse.
Yeah,
I would encourage you, Genesis 19, right? I think it is Genesis 19. Read that puppy. Say, hey kids, come
It's not a
together,
puppy.
let's read this story.
Read off.
I would even say to like research it a little bit too, like to really understand what's happening in
Yeah.
those moments, because it's like you read the story and you're like, this seems like a bit of an overreaction, but there were some really horrific things happening, and it's just
Yeah,
I'm-
so it's a
uncomfortable.
city, a region, the narrative, this is the very simple of it, is that God's people, messengers, angels, two of them show up. Again, who that is was it you can set aside. It's angels or people of God or whatever. It's great. And Lot welcomes them, and it totally sounds or feels like a moment like he's already embarrassed.
Mhm.
You should hang out come to my house. You should come
should
eat at my house.
hide in
Come on,
here.
come on. And it's like the moment when you were a kid, you were trying to swoop your parents past the disaster of the broken things or whatever it is, and they declined, but finally they did come. They said, we'll just sleep in the city square. And Lot is like,
You
no,
cannot. And you find out why.
yeah, and so then they get to the house, and
It's
then
not
it says
mosquitoes.
the men
Not the mosquitoes.
the men of the city came and demanded that they would be sent out so that they could assault them.
Mhm.
Assault them. That's a very nice way to put it.
It was a nice way to put
Right.
it.
That's the
What it is.
yeah.
The
And
PG
then
version.
and there's the trying to appease the crowd, and that is the nicest way I can
Yeah.
put that. And you should read it.
It's horrific.
But
You should read the story. That's really horrific.
Yeah, that's
But-
like saying like, hey, this smells really gross. You should smell it.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Oh.
You should smell.
No, get away from me.
I cleaned out some drains.
I'm pretty sure I've had these conversations. Oh.
So, but the thing again, so with Noah, it
Mhm.
was, God said, build an ark.
Yeah.
And that was a crazy command, but that was about God being a rescuer. And then here in the story of Lot, the angels go to Lot and they go, do you have any family here? Run.
Yeah.
And get out of here. Do you have anybody that you love and care about? Get out
Yeah.
of here. And those were declarations of, in the midst of incredible scolding and failure and heavy,
Mhm.
God is rescuing. And then again, in the midst of this, Peter is scolding, and then he has this God will rescue the godly.
Yeah.
And so I think again, grace as a concept can be easy to be told about or maybe even talk about in definitions or terms, but to truly, I think there's something beautiful about like feeling God's grace.
Yeah.
Who are you, God? And to have perspective where I would say, well, he's rescued me. And somehow in my brain, rescue feels more pertinent today than like saying saved. This is my processing of that.
There were a few times you were gonna say something. Do you still feel like, do you still have something to add?
Oh, I think we've moved. We've
All
moved
right,
on.
I just wanted to make
Thank you
sure.
for checking in, though. I appreciate that.
We can talk a lot and then it's like, oh, wait.
Is there, when you have really messed up, what do you need? I think that's one of the interesting questions that we're gonna be processing this week.
Well, I think one thing I thought about when I was like just reading through chapter 2 and kind of studying it. And like they were talking about the list of what makes somebody a false teacher, you know, and it was quite a list. And it's easy for me to go, oh, like I was like reading it, I was like, okay, I'm sure that I've done some of these things accidentally, where I've taught something or said something accidentally that was wrong. But like this list is like, this is the deceiving is intentional and it's on purpose. And it's like, there, like in that, I was just like, okay, there's a little grace for making mistakes. It's not necessarily that, you know, even with Peter, like maybe he did teach something wrong once in a while. Did that mean that he was a false teacher? Or did that mean just like he was making a mistake? And like, I feel like just knowing that, I don't know, I felt like for me, just going, okay, like, yes, I'm sure I've made mistakes. And it's not like God's going, well, you are the one that is leading all these people to deception and you're out, you know, it's just, so there is some grace in there and grace
For sure.
and just like,
Rescue.
yeah.
Yeah, and cause you can process all this and you feel, you can go, man, my relationship with God is really fragile.
Right.
And I don't think that, it's actually the whole narrative is, biblical narrative is not about the fragility of relationship
No.
with God, but rather God going, all right, I'm gonna rescue again.
Yeah.
Wow, you need it, I'll rescue again.
Yep.
As opposed to
Come back.
get
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. Don't make mistakes. Well, and even just like the command that like is taught over and over again is to love the Lord your God and to love your neighbor as yourself. And just like I feel like, and it's probably partly me with my own lens, but I feel like in everything we read, I see that again and again. And it's just like, there are some, even just in this room, we can read the same scripture and go, okay, we have different opinions of how this impacts us. But like, it's really, that's the important piece is that command to love. I mean, it's not the only important piece, but that is like the foundation of
Sums
it.
it up.
Yeah. And like, just, I don't know, it makes me go, okay, like, we don't have to have it all figured out. We can make mistakes. We might have differences of opinion even,
For sure.
but that foundational piece and then just believing in Jesus and who Jesus is, like, those are our guiding lights. And I don't know, it just made me a little more comfortable with making mistakes sometimes because, you know, because I will.
Yeah.
So.
I think that if we would dig into the repetition of biblical narrative, and the repetition was
Mhm.
God is not gracious. That would be,
That would be,
that'd be tough. to-
Scary.
Yeah, yeah, super scary. But even in the midst of God's wrath moments, I think that's what's beautiful of these two narratives that Peter alludes to, is that, wow, these are kind of scary moments. Very simple. It's so simplistic to say, well, they got what they deserved, but that is kind of like having somebody scolded in the room and you just being, cheering, yeah, which none of us said.
thank
That was our
goodness.
thing.
I would be like, might be with the wrong group of people.
Yeah. Well, Greg's not here today. Under the bus. But that's, again, the narrative shows that even in the midst of the hardest moments, God is incredibly gracious. And if our first thought, like, how do I relate to God? How does God relate to me? And if grace is not part of that picture, so it's gonna be pretty hollow.
Yeah.
It's gonna be pretty empty.
All right, Rich.
Jenny,
Oh.
let's, do you have any?
I feel like this is putting
What's your
her on
goal
the spot.
to share?
What's my goal?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. So I guess circling back to when we were talking about getting chewed out and sitting in the room getting chewed out, the thing I was thinking about is if doing it in public could be helpful if it's like someone who's giving bad advice from a position of leadership.
Wow.
Right? Because then, and I think that's kind of what we were already kind of talking about, but if it's someone who's a leader who I look up to who's giving the bad advice, then I do think it needs to be publicly scolded. Just so
That's
that
great insight.
people can see the people who are the followers. They all need to see this is wrong and this is bad advice. Don't follow this advice. And so it's maybe less about shaming the person giving the bad advice and more about protecting and the rescuing of the people who might follow that bad advice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. And so now Rachel always sings.
Bridges wrap up.
I
Sometimes
mean,
Scott does.
Scott kind of said it already, but even the stories in here, I think there's two parts to it. One is that God is making a relationship available in the Bible. That's the whole thing, is Noah, relationships available through Noah, and everyone else dies, but through Noah there can be a relationship. And then Sodom and Gomorrah, like there is saving out of that and relationship can be available. And then the reason Peter is so fiery is because people have that relationship with Christ and are not listening to it and are being demonstrated. And I think that the other thing, because we just talked about Peter and his sometimes belligerent bad advice, but we already talked through 1 John, and 1 John 2 says, hey, if you sin, there's Jesus. And I think that's the big fallback, is for the teacher who is up front giving bad teaching, there is still grace.
Yeah.
So on the other side of that conversation, there's rescue.
Yeah.
If it's, and I think that, we need to make every effort to accept that rescue. So.
It's good. Well, thanks, Jenny.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for letting me be
It's
here.
fun to have another ladies.
It's fun.
Mhm.
See ya.